Hey guys, and welcome back to Smite Tactics Closed Beta. And it's patch week once again. I know, these come around so often. And we have Closed Beta 5 patch this week, which is once again shaken things up quite a lot, I would say. Especially when it comes to items, or should I say spells, because all items are now renamed spells. And more importantly, all neutral items, or spells, have been assigned to different pantheons. So you no longer have Sunder, for example, in the neutral pool. To shake things up even further, the minimum deck size has been increased to 25 cards. So you now have access to fewer neutral cards, as a lot of them have been assigned to different pantheons, so you can't reach them. And also you now have to put more cards in your deck. So it's a bit of a weird change, all things told, but we'll get onto that in a second. To begin with, I just want to talk to you guys quickly about the favor changes. So you no longer have your daily login rewards, which some people might, be sad about, but instead, if you get a first win of the day, so if you win one game in a day, you will earn 100 favor. So instead of doing the daily quest, you just have to win one game. On top of that, for every level that you get on your account, levels are basically dictated by your leaders. Each time you level up a leader, that counts as gaining level on your account. And every time you gain a level on a leader, then you earn 40 favor. And, if you already have a bunch of levels, that favor is applied retroactively. So I actually logged in today and had loads of favor, which I have since spent on packs. On top of this, you get daily quests every day, regardless of whether you log in or not. So previously, you had to log in to get your daily quest. Now, let's say you go away for the weekend. If you come back, you should have, 3 new quests, basically. So that's another thing that's kind of happened in terms of favor. So some new ways to gain favor, which is nice. You'll also notice here, you can see how many quests you have. There's, little notifications. If I had enough favor to buy a pack, there would be an icon by the store, for example, just to encourage people to buy packs. But let's start with the new cards. Everyone loves themselves some new cards. Okay, so let's kick things off with... Where are all my decks? My decks have disappeared. Anyway, let's kick things off with Chinese and their new units. So we'll start with units and then we'll do spells. So not items now, spells. So Clay Soldier, Afterlife, this triggers when he dies. Deal a total of 5 random damage to all adjacent enemies. 3 cost, 0 damage, 2 health. So when it dies, it does an explosion of 5 damage. And if there's one adjacent enemy, that enemy's taken 5 damage, right? Whereas if there's more than one, that gets spread out and it's kind of random. Now, the interesting thing about the Clay Soldier, he's a 0-2, so, you're going to have to either run him up to a unit and attack that unit with the Clay Soldier and then kill him with retaliation damage. Or you can actually target your own Clay Soldier with your units, so you can, position him and then use another unit to kill him and trigger the effect. So that's really interesting. And I think this card is definitely going to see some play. Then you may have noticed Habois over here. Return... We'll let him do his Habois things. Return target enemy to owner's hand. So basically, you use Habois to give a card back to the owner, basically. And I feel like, this is a useful ability for control strategies, but it's definitely not an ability you want to use on Warcry units, because then they can just trigger the Warcry again. You wouldn't want to give Anubis back to someone, for example, because he's just going to summon even more of that, creep stuff that does damage. Anubis's Warcry, for example, is really strong. But, cards that are maybe more problematic that have afterlife effects, maybe like Bastet or something, you can always just keep giving them back to the opponent, and then they don't really get to utilize those cards, which is a nice choice. So that's that with Habois. And this will synergize if you want to use this effect with Recall, which is a new spell. Return target non-leader to current owner's hand. So basically 2 cost does the same thing. So you can do it for 2 mana, or you can do it for 3 mana and leave a 3/1 unit behind. Then we have, let's go this way, we have Silence, which is another new spell card for the Chinese. Remove all passives and abilities from target non-leaders. So this basically stops their passive from happening. So for example, Chang'e, at the end of the turn, heal all adjacent friendlies for 1. Now, in the last patch, this actually healed them for 2. I don't know if this is a typo or whether that's been nerfed, but basically with Silence, you could stop this effect from triggering. You could stop her from being able to heal things. So I think this maybe has potential. The problem is obviously silencing a Warcry, for example, doesn't really gain you anything. If I silence Habois, he's already returned a unit to my hand. So it's a bit more situational. Similarly, Habois, you don't want to be returning Warcry units. So kind of an interesting card. Only 1 mana. And I mean, with the deck size going up, it definitely may, find a home as a way to counter, maybe problematic cards. Like on her, for example. His ability is kind of a pain in the ass. Last but not least, we have a new legendary. Wait for it. Legendary. There we go. Dragon King. Deal 3 damage to target enemy, then 3 damage to all enemies on the same row. So you deal damage to a unit. Say the unit is here. And then the dragon then goes along the whole row and damages units in that row. So if you're playing against Chinese, you want to be a little bit careful about how you position your units along the row, you know, kind of so that they're not all lined up, that the Dragon King could do, you know, significant damage. The other thing to point out is you can use Dragon King to kill your own clay soldier. So if you line up the row and then have your clay soldier there as well, you can then kill it with the Dragon King and then also get that 5 damage. So there's a bit of a synergy there, for example, where maybe you could put the clay soldier next to the opponent, then Dragon King the leader, for example, and then also kill the clay soldier. So that's like 8 damage to a leader, for example, which is a nice little move if you're going for face damage. But that's it for new cards when it comes to Chinese. Next up, we have Egyptian, and Egyptian have some cool new minions. So let's have a wee look at those. Okay, so Egyptian, I'm gonna have to find them now. We'll start with Decrepit Bowman if we can find him. There he is, Decrepit Bowman. Ranged, Afterlife, spawn 2 1/1s with ranged. So it's a 2/2 for 3 costs, so kind of early game. And when it dies, it spawns 2 1/1s. So you would spawn 1 underneath you and 1 randomly around you. And this is kind of like the ranged alternative to Bastet. So Bastet is melee, and she spawns 3 cats, which are all 1/1. The alternative here is that you spawn 2 1/1s, but they are ranged. So it's kind of a similar card, and it plays a similar kind of role to Bastet, basically. Doesn't seem like too bad of a card. The only thing is, you know, with a minion, I know people avoid minions because of Minion Recruiter, which hasn't seen any changes. So whether or not this will see play kind of remains to be seen. You may have noticed then we also have Departed Warrior. 3 mana, he's a 3/2, and Afterlife you draw a card. And I mean, I don't really rate 3/2s. You know, we have the Fury, for example, or, sorry, the Elder Harpy, which is a 3/2, but people don't really run it because 2 health is so quick to clear. And I mean, I guess here the benefit is that if it gets cleared, you know, you get a card. So maybe you could run it as a minion with card draw. But ultimately, I am not convinced that this guy will see a huge amount of play. Because I think if you're going for card draw in Egyptian, you could always just run Ward. Where is Ward? There it is, draw 2 cards. And that's, you know, then you don't have to wait, you know, have the minion get cleared. Because I feel like we have better minions, really. Then we have Tomb Warden. Where is Tomb Warden? Tomb Warden. I'll right click on him so you can see him. There he is in all his Tomb Warden glory. Afterlife, become a 5/5. So I don't think you can self-target this unit in the same way as you could with the Clay Soldier. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think you can. And you'll notice he only has 1 mobility. The Tomb Warden, however, has more mobility. I think it's got 3, but I'm not entirely sure. It's definitely got more than 1 mobility, though. So this is kind of like, you know, putting something out there for later on, I guess, to try and trigger his later effect. But I feel like, you know, your opponent's just going to not kill it. And I'm not sure that Egypt has a way to kill its own units. So then, you know, what do you really do with the Tomb Warden? I mean, they removed the fire squares from the Norse map. I was going to say on the Norse map you could stand him on one of those flaming squares and then turn him into a 5/5, but I think they got removed. So I don't know, we'll see. This one kind of I'm kind of waiting. I'm holding judgment. The last card you may have noticed if we go back in Egyptian is Focus Blast. This is huge. I don't like this card. Deal 4 damage to any non-leader enemy in target area. So this does damage in an area. You target a tile rather than target a unit. And I don't like this because I feel like Egyptian already has so much clear. I mean, you might have noticed that they got Sunder, for example. They have Magma Slam. They have so much clear. And previously, you know, you could utilize Bush's or Nuwa's leader ability to kind of try and protect units. Or alternatively stealth in Norse. But now with this kind of square targeting, you know, I think that allows you to target stealth as well, which means that you've got 4 damage. That's a lot of damage. That kills a Loki, that kills a Soul, that kills a Neath if you're, you know, running Egyptian. You know, it kills a lot of things, and I'm not convinced that Egyptian necessarily needed, you know, even more clear. So I think this is a really good card, don't get me wrong, and I definitely think it's worth running. I just feel like maybe it's a little bit too much for targeting. Like, I feel like they gave a lot of damage and also the ability to target an area. And I feel like if you're going to give the ability to target an area, you should maybe reduce the damage a little bit to make it a bit more balanced. But we'll see. Then we have Greek. We have 2 new goddesses. Yeah, goddesses. I don't know why I said that weird. We have Nike and Nemesis. Nemesis is a 2 cost. Half a target's health and add the removed amount to Nemesis. So this is half rounded, I want to say up. Or down. Yeah, so if they have 3 health and you half it, you only get 1 health. It's rounded down. But that's still, like, you know, pretty good, like, kind of like a Sunder with a 2-2 attached, right? So a Sunder was 1 cost. This is a 2 cost, 2-2 unit that also happens to, because it's a Warcry, also happens to deal, you know, a decent amount of damage, especially to high health, you know, targets. So I think this has potential, and obviously she gains that health, so you could end up with like a 2-4 or, you know, a 2-5 or whatever, depending on what you target. I like this card. I think low cost god is something nice in the Greek pantheon, and I definitely think it needs, you know, some new cards. Then we have Nike, who is, I think, 6 mana. She's in here somewhere. There she is. I don't own her, but she is common, so she's very easy to craft.
Trust in me, and I will grant you victory.
Well, should grant you victory, guys. So I feel like you can't really fault her. More importantly, she's immune to spells. So this is nice. This is a really nice kind of Egyptian counter. You know, execute, can't use that. Phantom Grasp, can't use that. Like, you know, the new one, the focused, whatever it was called. Focus Blast, you can't use that. 6/5, and you can have 2 of them in your deck. I think this is a good card. I think it's nice and strong, and it's going to be hard for pantheons like the Egyptians to remove without, you know, investing in units. And yeah, I think she's going to be. I think she's definitely going to see play, and I should probably craft her. I feel like I'll find her in packs, so I'll not craft her for now. I'll craft her when I need her. Last but not least, do we have any new Norse cards? Yeah, we do. We have 1 new Norse cards. Answers. I don't know why I'm saying it in such a silly voice. Here it is, Answers. Discover an Omen. So basically with this, you use it, and then you have these omens, and there are 3 different omens. There's the Purge Omen, which silences a non-leader enemy. So we talked about silence earlier in Chinese, so stops their abilities and passives. The Buff Omen gives a non-leader friendly +1/+1. And the Damage Omen, which deals 2 damage to an enemy, which is basically like Sunder. And I actually think this card is great because you discover the omen, so you actually get to pick which one you want. And then you can use that omen to, you know, either buff your units or stop a problematic unit with silence, or even just deal 2 damage, which I think is really nice. I think this is a nice little card, and I think it's actually probably one that you're going to see in a lot of decks. Then neutral cards, I've got a few of these too. Neutral minions, obviously, because there's no spells in neutral anymore. Look at them, they're all minions. Okay, so we have the Doom Speaker. It's just a 3/4 minion. That's it. There's no text. I don't know how I feel about this. I'm so used to there being text. I think a 3/4 unit for 3 mana is good. Units are good. Again, minions, you have to be careful with minion recruiters. I'm always a bit wary about this. Not much to say about this. Then we have Scion of Doom. Scion of Doom is so good. Warcry, give a friendly +2 attack this turn. Like, this is going to be a staple in aggro decks. I can already see this in Norse decks. +2 attack for a turn. I mean, we were already looking at that kind of OTK Loki combo. So with the Scion of Doom and maybe Fatalis or Sprint, you know, the +2 attack is, for only 2 mana cost, is pretty nice. And you get a 1/2 unit to boot, which they then also have to clear. I mean, 1/2 units aren't super scary, but I feel like his Warcry is a pretty big deal. And I think he'll be kind of a deck staple for a lot of decks. Then we have Chaos Spawn. Warcry, silence a non-leader enemy. So more silencing going on with a 2/3. I'm not sure how useful the silence ability currently is. I actually think, you know, for Nike, for example, who's immune to spells, the silencing her is, you know, a really big deal, but how many other gods is silence going to be super useful against? I haven't really, like, looked into it, for example. So a 2/3 with a silence remains to be seen. And again, you have to worry about minion recruiter a little bit. So I don't really know. But yeah, that's kind of it for the new cards anyway. The thing that we now need to really cover is where have all of our items gone from? Where are the new homes for this year items or spells now from the neutral pool, and also just go through a few balance changes. So I don't think China actually got any of the items. Let me have a quick look. I think they already have. They have so many of their own spells that I don't actually think they got any in the neutral divorce. Let me have a quick look. It doesn't look like these are all ones they had previously. So nothing for China. Egypt, you see, got Sunder. So Egypt got Sunder and Fist of the Gods. They can now stun units. They can now deal 2 damage to enemies. This being removed from the neutral pool is going to harm a lot of other decks. But on the flip side, Fire Imp basically does the same thing. You just have to be close enough to move him into position. So I actually think we'll see a lot more decks running Fire Imp now to replace the fact that they no longer have Sunder. While we're in here, on her, he was nerfed. His knockback his knockback only knocks units back 1 now. He used to be, you know, very, very potent because you could knock unit backs 2 tiles, and then if they were out of range, they wouldn't hit him back, and it made it easier for him to stun things. He was a very potent unit, and I think this nerf is completely justified. In all honesty. What else? What else have we got? I'm just trying to think where other cards have gone. Execute costs more now. I forgot about that one. Execute now costs 5. So that's a nice change. Kill a non-leader enemy now costs 5 mana. I think Norse actually got quite a few of the old spells. Blink, for example, is here in Norse. Charge got moved to Norse. We'll have a quick look through them and see if we can spot any other ones. Wind Demon, give a non-leader range. Was this always Norse? I don't think this was. I think this got moved. I'm going to say that Wind Demon got moved. That's now in Norse, for example. What else have we got in here? Pardon. Pardon is now in Norse. Yeah, I mean, there's not that many high-cost cards. And then Greek. Let's see what Greek got. Greek has Purification. Remove all crowd control effects. I swear that was already in here. Ah, well, we'll worry about it later. Thorns. Thorns is now in Greek, as is, I think, Weakening Curse. Yep, set an enemy's attack to 0. That's now a Greek card. What else have we got? Stone of Gaia is now in Greek. That's in here somewhere. Sentry Ward is now Greek. So Greeks now have the option to take a card from your opponent's deck. Previously, you know, neutral cards could do that. Guard is now in Greek. Gem of Isolation, I don't know if that was Greek already, but that's also in Greek. You can kind of have a look for yourself where the new cards have found their new homes. And I think they're trying to reinforce different archetypes within the different pantheons, and that's why this has kind of happened. But ultimately, I don't know. I don't know if it was the right decision. I think like having some like Blink and Sunder and stuff, they were just generally strong cards, and I feel like they've made, for example, Egyptian and Norse stronger, whereas Greek was already kind of lacking, and I don't know if Greek did that well in this divorce. And like China just did terribly. You know, China got nothing. You'll also notice a few kind of balance changes, like Scylla, for example. She now costs less. She now costs 3. And she also has less health. So she costs less, she has less health, she's easier to kill, basically. Just to kind of, you know, make her a bit easier to kill. Sobek, his knockback is down from 2 to 1. And I think Chao Feng has seen like 8 million changes, as has Fan Wei. Chao Feng is now a 4/3 immune to melee. So Guard is exclusively Greek. And then, yeah, so he's a 4/3, and so you can't hit him with melee, you can only hit him with range. So he's like the opposite of Kang. So you could do like this Kang Chao Feng, I don't know, monkey combo. And then Fan Wei, he costs 5 now, and he's got 5 damage and 3 health. The 3 health is a big deal, because 2 health he was just so easy to clear that like there was no point in running him, basically. Like I felt like there was no real reason to run him, and that's why nobody did. So I think they're trying to make these neutral minions, you know, more enticing. But I honestly think until they do something about Minion Recruiter, people are gonna favor running gods over running minions. Like, until that gets sorted out, because having, you know, your Minion Recruiter pull a Blade Master or a Fire Giant is just not fun, guys. It's just not fun. But yeah, that's more or less it for the patch notes. There's obviously like changes. I'll have a link to the written patch notes in the description, so if you want to go and read through all of those and spot anything that I've missed, then you can. But this has been my kind of thoughts on the patch. And overall, I'm excited to try out these 25 card decks. We'll definitely have some new deck guides coming out in the future. I'm thinking of redoing the beginner decks, because, you know, now that there's 25 cards, there's no neutral cards. I think this has changed things a lot. Are there even 25 neutral cards in every Pantheon? I have no idea. That's a question for the devs. But we'll look into that, and we'll also do some kind of updated meta decks. So if you like this, maybe subscribe to the channel, hit that thumbs up button, guys. You can catch me live streaming Smite Tactics on twitch.tv/Jaggerus, and you can also find me on Twitter @Jaggerus. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye!